Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Lithuania for the first time in over 3 years, and this is only going to be the third Lithuanian beer that I've ever reviewed for you on the channel, so hopefully it turns out to be a good one and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So we're going to go to another brewery who I have never tried anything from before, and these guys are actually one of the older and more established craft breweries over there from what I understand. So we're going to go to the southeast of the country and we're having a taste of my first beer from Sakiškių Alus, if I've pronounced that correctly. Probably not, because I know that Lithuanian is a very, very difficult language. It's one that I have absolutely no experience of. But this particular beer is their Imperial Stout. It comes in at 9.2% ABV and it is supposed to be a pretty nice beer, this one. I've heard that this brewery is very well respected. They've won a good number of awards from what I understand from the likes of Rate Beer and things, and yeah, just very, very curious to try this one. This is a beer I have had for a little while. I think I've had this beer maybe about 2 years or so, but when it's an Imperial Stout, that should not be a problem. You know, I think this is one that I maybe bought not long after I did my last Lithuanian review actually. So the other two Lithuanian beers that have been on the channel before, it was one from Sakiškės, who are one of the bigger macro producers over there, and then also Untappd, who were the first Lithuanian craft brewery, and that one was the Sutavaras, which was a traditional Lithuanian farmhouse ale actually. So really curious to try my first sort of American style craft beer from Lithuania, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So yeah, let's see how we go on with this one then. As I always say, I love reviewing different beers from different places, and it's very rare that you'll find a Lithuanian beer outside of Lithuania, of course. So yeah, let's see how we go with this one then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Sakiškių Alus. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that takes your fancy. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for the Lithuanian beers, and that is being added to just whenever I get the chance. But as I say, only 3 reviews out of 2,300-ish that are Lithuanian so far. Hopefully we can add more to that in the near future. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. Always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely, hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Sakiškių Alus then, on to my brewery notes. So Sakiškių Alus are based in the small village of Sakiškės, which is about 20 kilometers to the north of the Lithuanian capital Vilnius in the southeastern part of the country, and the company was founded originally by Linas Zarakevičius. So he started out as a home brewer, and he was encouraged by his family and friends to take his brewing to the next level. Apparently his first home brews that he did just really went down an absolute storm. But in the early days he was joined by Gediminas Volkas, who learned about craft beer and home brewing in the UK when he lived over there and was studying over there, and he previously worked for Untappd, as I mentioned, the first ever Lithuanian craft brewery. But these guys started off as a very small operation. They had a 500 litre brew kit that they built themselves, and the brewery is based in an 80 square metre house. If you look at the pictures of this house, it looks just like a kind of winter lodge, almost like some of these kind of house cabin type things that you get at ski resorts. But yeah, the brewery itself is on the bottom floor, and they've got a refrigeration space down there as well. But upstairs there's a malt storage area, a small kind of maltery I think too, and they've also got a guest room there, so I think you can actually stay at this brewery if you want to. But over the years they've gradually scaled up their fermentation capacity, and in 2017 they upgraded their brewing plant as well. I think around 2017 they were producing around 4,000 litres per month, but that's been scaled up significantly since then from what I understand. But they are still a really quite small brewery from what I understand. Over the years they've won a good number of awards. They've got various different awards from Rate Beer, including the best Lithuanian brewery in 2016. And yeah, the only other information I could find about this brewery was that as of July 2020, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, they've produced around 65 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. There's various different styles in there. There's traditional Lithuanian beers, there's things that have got really random fruits and stuff like that added to them, there's IPAs in there, and of course you've got a few Imperial Stouts and things like that as well. So yeah, really impressive little brewery, this one, and you know, they seem to have done a wide array of different beers, and they seem to be very experimental as well, which is always interesting. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Sakiškių Alus for the moment. You know, it's from what I understand, Linus Sakarevičius, he was a really well respected homebrewer before, and then Gediminas was known in the homebrewing circus as well, and they joined together to form this company too. So they seem to have gone from strength to strength over the years, and definitely cool to see more countries getting in on the whole craft beer thing as well. But yeah, as I say, that was all the information I could find on the brewery for the moment. Maybe in the future I can do another review from these guys and tell you a little bit more about the brewery actually. So yeah, if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So this one, like I said to you at the start of the video, this one is a 9.2% Imperial Stout. We got this beer, I'm sure I bought this one in Sweden actually. I'm pretty sure that I got this one in one of the you know, the små partiers till Felix sortiment in Systembolaget. But you can see the artwork on this one is pretty nice. The artwork still hasn't changed. It says here that this beer was bottled in on the 26th of October 2017. So I've got a feeling that I actually bought this beer when I've got a feeling that I bought it on my little trip that I did to Sweden in like April of 2018. I'm sure I got this beer sometime around then, but it says here that this one is best before the 26th of October 2020. So yeah, it is still in date, this one. It has been aged a little bit though, so it should be quite nice. Obviously I've kept this beer at the right temperature, and I've also kept it in the fridge for the last little while as well. But the malt base in this one apparently is pale malts, Munich malts, special B, chocolate, caramel, dark malts, and also roasted malt as well. There's some oatmeal flakes, a little bit of brown sugar. It's been hot with Chinook, and they also add some oak chips and vanilla into the beer during the fermentation in the tank. So it should be a pretty complex one, this, and hopefully, as I say, a very, very interesting beer. But yeah, there you can see it. There it is, the Sakiškių Alus symbol on this one, and that is also, it's kind of also the same on the bottle cap as well. So a really nicely presented beer, this one, 330 millilitres. To be honest with you, absolutely no idea what I would have paid for this beer. Maybe about, I guess, maybe about 45, 50 crowns or something like that back in 2018. But yeah, without further ado, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. I'll need to keep the cap for this beer as well. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. As I say, my first Lithuanian beer in you know, 3 years, and only the third one that I've ever reviewed for you on the channel actually. Just need to, I guess we just need to watch the head with this one. This one, I think, by the looks of it, is bottle condition, so we just need to make sure that we get this one out sensibly. When you open this beer up, of course, you do get a nice little bit of carbonation coming out of it, and I think I managed to get, yeah, got pretty much all of the sediment out of this one, which is what you want actually. So yeah, as you can see and as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this one has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If we shine the light through this, it does have a little bit of a Coca-Cola coloured edge to it, but this one is pretty damn dark, I have to say, pretty much black as night. So yeah, definitely fair to say that this is a lovely kind of ebony rosewood colour, this one. No two doubts in my mind about that. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and I can see a couple of little ones just going up to the bottom of the head there. I mean, overall, it does look pretty damn nice, but nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider that it is an Imperial Stout. You can see the head on this one is retaining quite well, but I guess that's maybe been because it's been in the bottle for, you know, like nearly 3 years. But yeah, it should still be pretty damn good actually. So you can see the head on this one when we poured it was just about 2 fingers. I would describe it as being a kind of medium beige head. This one, it is actually quite foamy, but there are a few kind of bumpy bits towards the centre of the tongue and around the kind of top edge of it. But yeah, you can see from the foam, if I put it up to the camera, it's kind of medium size bubbles there that you're getting out of this one. But yeah, that head will gradually just fade away to be a very sort of thin foamy layer, I'm sure. But yeah, probably a little bit more active because of how long it's been in the bottle, of course. So yeah, and as I say, the lower 9.2%, when you think about it, that's not the heaviest of imperial stouts that you're going to come across, but still, for the amount of malts and things like that that's in it, and the fact it's got oat chips and stuff added to it, it should be fairly complex. I think this will be an interesting one just on the basis of its ABV and stuff. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, now that's interesting. So straight away with this one, you really notice the woody character to this one. You can definitely pick out that lovely oaky note in there. It's interesting too because it, to me, just on first smell of it, it actually almost comes across as being a little touch smoky. Wasn't expecting that out of it. It really does come across as being a little bit smoky almost. But yeah, that's interesting. I did not expect that out of this one. I don't know if that would be the special B that's doing that actually, that's giving you that almost slightly it's almost slightly smoky, smooth roastiness out of the beer. But yeah. Yeah, I really like how this goes together. So the aroma of this one is really nice. As I say, the first thing you'll notice about this beer is the kind of toasty woody character. The woodiness almost has a little bit of a kind of spiciness to it. It says it's American oak, and of course the American oak tree compared to the European oak, they've got different leaves and stuff. I think it's a completely different species. It's actually, you know, it's really quite different, to be honest with you. But of course we get a lot of breweries. Different woods can have different effects on the beers, of course. So, you know, bourbon barrels made from American oak are going to give you quite a different character to the beer compared to Scotch whisky barrels or Irish whisky barrels. So yeah, that's the thing, is the woody notes that I get with this are really quite spicy and things like that. Sometimes you can get hickory aged beers and things which are interesting, but the woodiness in this does strike me as being a little bit more spicy than other oak aged beers that I've come across. But as I say, they use chips in this rather than actually aging it in the barrel. But yeah, for me this one, there's a good little bit of a roasty kind of, you do get the roasty black malts out of this one. You can smell that really roasty toasty backbone to the beer, but at the same time the kind of breadiness. The beer definitely has a bit of a brown breadiness, bread crusty quality that really kind of smoothens the whole thing out actually. You know, I think the Special B does give you a lovely smoothness there. So yeah, woody backbone. Then you've got the kind of mixture of the roasted malts, the kind of toasty, well-fired, bread crusty quality in there, then a little bit of brown breads. So interesting things going on with this one, I have to say. There's a lot of different things kind of coming out of this. The bready note I think will be coming from the oatmeal rather than anything else. But yeah, at the same time, on top of that, you can smell some of the more brown sugary notes out of this one. It is almost a little bit like, it's more of a, the brown sugar, it doesn't come across as pretty, you know, as particularly treacly or molasses-like, to be honest with you. It does come across, it doesn't even really come across as a sweet caramel. It almost comes across a little bit more like a kind of slightly biscuity, grainy type sweetness, which is interesting. So you really get quite a bit of that out of this one for me. You do get a nice little bit of a kind of biscuity quality coming out of this one, but yeah, there is a nice, yeah, I think the more that I smell of it, you do get a little tiny touch of a kind of, there is almost a little tiny bit of like a Werther's Original type aroma coming out of this one. But yeah, the brown sugar for me comes across as particularly sort of biscuity and McVitie's digestive, like, to be honest with you. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this beer I think is it's really quite quirky and quite unusual. You do get a little bit of vanilla out of this one. And there's a few little kind of chocolatey aromas as well. You do get a little bit of that darker, you know, higher percentage cocoa chocolate, like a 70%ish cocoa. But then you've also got a little bit of, a more kind of milky, you've also got more of a kind of milky chocolate out of this one. You know, a sort of 40-ish% cocoa actually. So yeah, I do like how all of that goes together in this one. But yeah, the aroma, the malty side of the aroma here is really quite nice actually. As you can tell just from how I've described it, there is a good little bit of kind of quirkiness to that. But on the hoppy side of things, you do get a little bit of touch. There is a wee teeny bit of earthiness to it. You can pick up one or two kind of floral notes out of it. But this beer, as I say, it has been in the bottle for you know, over about 3 years actually, so you're not getting too much in the way of the kind of green side of the hops. So there is a little bit of grassiness, a little bit of floral note, and you also get a good bit of earthiness out of it. But the fruity side of things is quite, is definitely quite interesting. So for me, the fruitiness that you get out of this beer, look at how foamy that head is now. But yeah, the fruitiness you get out of this beer, there's a wee bit of a kind of plummy note to it. It's got a little bit of a kind of pruny quality underneath as well. There is almost, the more I smell of this beer, I almost get a little bit more of a kind of cakiness, sort of a dark kind of fruity cake quality out of this one. You do get more and more of that. But yeah, there is a little bit of a plummy note to it, a little bit of a raisiny sharpness, some datey kind of pruny qualities, and then you start to get some of the lighter figs and a bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing as well. The fruits actually do have a good little bit of complexity to them, but I'm noticing more of a kind of cakey-ish kind of, you know, sort of datey, pruny note coming out of this one as well. It's almost got a little touch of a kind of phenolic quality to it, which is quite interesting. But yeah, the aroma from this beer, I think, is very, very nice. Take a little bit of time and enjoy that of this one. The real quirkiness for me is the way the woody characters come out, I think, and mix with everything else. So yeah, let's have a little taste of this one then, and see how we get on. I'm very, very curious to see how this beer turns out. It's got a lovely, lovely aroma to it. So this one is just called Imperial Stout at 9.2% ABV from Sakiškių Alus in the southeast of Lithuania, Lietuva. So yeah, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Slanjutsko I Svetaka. I Svetaka? Not sure if that's right, but yeah, cheers. Let's get stuck into this one. Oh yeah, it's quite a roasty, toasty one, this. Yeah, I think probably if you're putting this into the different sub-styles of Imperial Stout, you know, this is quite a, it's leaning towards that really roasty, toasty Russian Imperial side of things, the Russian Imperial Stouts. Yeah, they did say that on the website, and I can definitely see why. This is one of the roastier and toastier ones that I've come across recently. And you know, at 9.2%, this one does pack a fair punch to it, so kudos to them for that. But yeah, that is that's a really pretty nice beer, I have to say. So thumbs up to these guys for this one. They've done a really nice job of this. I have to admit, I feel I'm paranoid in this review that I'm just saying the name of the brewery wrong. It's something, it's my, maybe I've got a bit of OCD, and it's just something that annoys me. I like to try and get the pronunciations right, but Sakiškių Alus, I don't know if that's right, but yeah, I'm always paranoid that I'm going to mess it up when I say it. But yeah, the thing, this is a very, to me, the aftertaste you get out of this beer is really dry, and it's got a lovely big kind of toasty character to it actually. So yeah, I like how this goes together. Let's try and, you know, break down the flavour of this one then, but definitely one of the drier and roasty or toasty, more toasty Imperial Stouts I've had recently. So yeah, straight away with this one, you get that lovely kind of roasty, toasty black malt quality that blankets the middle of your tongue. I think some of that roastiness, you know, it really is very dry. I don't know if that's the special B it's giving you some of that. I would have thought, you know, with a bit of the Munich malt in there, and also the and also the oatmeal flakes that are in this one. I would have thought that would have kind of smoothened it. It would have smoothened the whole thing out a little bit more. But actually, no. This beer really retains quite a bit of dryness. So if you go towards the back third of your palate, and this is where you tend to get the more kind of dry and bitter character. If you go towards the back of your palate there, you really get pretty much just all black malt. It's just that roasty, toasty, dark malt quality that's coming out of this one. So yeah, it has black, roasted and special B, and all of those are going to give you a degree of bitterness, to be honest with you. So this is quite a high bitterness stout, this one. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the mouthfeel though. But yeah, back third of your palate with this one then, really quite big and roasty and toasted, and that's about it. Some of the dark, really well fired grains, that's in the back third of the tongue, but then the complexity for this beer is most definitely in the middle there. So if you go into the kind of middle third of your palate, you can feel the roasty, toasty qualities in there. On top of that, you can feel that in the very centre of your palate, you've got the kind of woody notes, the oak. The kind of the oaky contribution to this beer is kind of sitting there as well. So in the very centre of your palate, it's almost like you've got a little island, and that's the kind of woody characters there. But as you move out from that further towards the edge, you get the roasty, toasty, kind of black malty notes in there. On top of that kind of woodiness, there is a little element of a kind of brown sugary note. It's like a very light sort of Werther's Original kind of thing. I would say, in fairness, the wood does come across as being a little bit spicy almost with this one. It doesn't quite come across as the very smooth oaky quality that you would normally associate in things, and I don't know if that is the fact that it's oak chips rather than being barrel aged and stuff. Of course, with barrel aging, the mouthfeel thins out a little bit, and you also get, you know, the kind of these really infused but very smooth flavours. So yeah, for me, the spiciness of the wood really mixes in with the roasted, the special B, and the black malts that they've used in here. You get a little bit of a Werther's Originally type, very light brown sugary note on top of that, but then in the very centre of your palate, you do get, right in the dead centre, you get a little bit of a sweet caramelly note to this one, but then on top of everything else, as you move further out from that, it does get a little bit more kind of biscuity and grainy in its sweetness. So there is a wee bit of that coming out of this one. But yeah, the middle of your palate, I think, is very roasty and toasty, but at the same time there's that woody smoothness just forming the backbone of the beer. It's got a little bit of kind of breadiness to it in there as well, but not too much, not too much. Yeah, it does. The more you drink of this beer, the more you get a little bit of that kind of, the more you get a little bit of a kind of brown bready quality out of it. You can feel that in the middle third of your palate, it does slightly thicken up a little bit. The further you go into the aftertaste, you will get a bit more of that. It's almost like a well-fired bread crust. Actually, you get a bit of a kind of brown bready quality there, and a kind of more well-fired bread crusty quality out of this one. So yeah, you will feel this beer get drier and drier the further you go into the aftertaste. If you go to the very dead centre of the tongue, as I say, and then move forward a little bit, you will get a few kind of nutty undertones to the beer. As you go into the aftertaste as well, you will feel just behind the kind of front third of your palate, just kind of towards the edge of the kind of middle third of your tongue, you've got a wee bit of a kind of vanilla. You get a bit of the vanilla coming out of this one there as well. But the brown sugars, I think, they do come out. The sweetness of the brown sugars, I think, comes out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste, and it does get just a little bit sweeter and things like that the further you go into it. But it's definitely not a caramelly note. It's not a kind of even well-fired brown sugar or anything like that. It is just a kind of brown sugary sweetness almost that comes out of this one. It's quite difficult to describe this beer actually, because there's so many different little quirks going on in it. But I think we've covered the kind of the middle third and the back third of your tongue quite well now then. So let's go on to the hoppy side of it. So back corners of the palate, definitely a good kind of whack of earthiness there. Definitely a good bit of earthiness with that one. But as you move further forward along the palate, that smoothens out a little bit. As you reach the front corners of the tongue, it's definitely a little bit kind of brighter and more floral, I would say. Then round the very front curve of the palate, the beer is just a little bit lighter and grassy. Then behind the front curve of the tongue, in that front third of the palate, that's where you get the nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer. At the border mark between the front third of your tongue and the middle third of your tongue, there is a really dark, kind of almost like a toasty, cakey quality to the beer. It does have a little bit of cakiness to it, this one, as I said, and that forms the bridge between the fruity side of the beer and the malty side of things. So that's quite an interesting quirk to this one as well. But yeah, on the fruity side of this one, when you take it in, you've got a good little bit of a raisiny, that more kind of sharp raisiny quality to it. Little bit of, there's a little bit of a kind of plummy juiciness in the beginning. If you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, you get the kind of sharper raisins sitting there. You do get a little bit of a kind of plummy, juicy quality there. Then you can feel as you gradually go further into the aftertaste, you'll get a little bit more of a kind of figgy quality just rolling its way out of the palate. And as you move almost towards the kind of front tip of the tongue, you'll get a few sort of blackcurranty, blackberry-ish qualities to the beer as well, but you can feel some of the roastiness, so there is almost just a little bit of that roasty black malty quality on the tip of the tongue too, just sitting underneath the fruits. It amazes me how dry this is for a stout actually. It's a very interesting one, I have to say, but yeah, definitely for 9.2% this one packs a hell of a punch, to be honest with you, in terms of the sheer volume of flavour that you get out of it. But I would say that overall this is definitely one of the drier and more roasty toasty imperial stouts that I've come across in recent times. But it gets a thumbs up from me. This is a really quirky beer and I do like this one actually. So yeah, the woodiness that you get out of this is quirky, and just the way that the flavours actually come out in this beer I think is very, very interesting. So yeah, I don't feel that I've done an adequate job of describing the flavour of this one to you. I think this one really is very, very quirky, especially when you consider it's 9.2%, which is hefty generally when it comes to beer, but for an imperial stout it's obviously not the heftiest thing you are going to come across. But yeah, it gets a thumbs up from me, this one. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. I'd love to try I think there's a whiskey barrel aged version of this. I think that would be a very interesting beer to try actually. But yeah, very dry, roasty toasty imperial stout, this one, most definitely in the Russian imperial stout category. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, that is the one thing about this beer. I think this one, in fairness, it's one of the thinner imperial stouts that I've come across as well. The carbonation in this one is a little bit overactive because the beer has been in the bottle for 3 years. We do have to remember that, but I think even without that, to me this is quite it's actually, in terms of its body, I would say it's at the top end of mid-bodied. It's one of the lighter imperial stouts that you're going to come across, and that's the impressive thing, is it still packs a hell of a flavour to it. It's got a hell of a punch when it comes to its flavour, but to me it's remarkably light in its mouthfeel when you consider how light the flavour actually is. But yeah, lovely kind of roasty toasty quality to this beer. I'd say that overall the mouthfeel is quite dry. I'd say it's definitely quite a dry imperial stout. There's a wee bit of wetness and kind of crispness to it. It's almost like a wet, crisp and quite dry imperial stout, this one actually. And it's quite unusual to call an imperial stout crisp in my mind. So yeah, very quirky in terms of its mouthfeel, but definitely one of the lighter and slightly thinner imperial stouts that I've come across. But that doesn't affect it in a negative way, to be honest with you. It still packs a hell of a punch. The carbonation, as I say, is a little bit overactive in this, but when it's 3 years old we do have to kind of overlook that. But on the bitterness side of things, you're getting bitterness both from the hops and from the malty side of things in this. This has got to be an 80, 90, maybe even 100 IBU stout. This one is really kind of sitting way up there. I think 80 IBUs for this beer is probably the minimum. But yeah, the malt base, as I say, it's got a really roasty, toasty and bitter backbone to it. A little bit of smoothness both from the woody side of things, but also the kind of bready qualities as well. And there's a little touch of sweetness in the middle of the palate. I think the beer, if you pay attention to the centre of your tongue, it does gradually get a little bit more. It does gradually get just a little bit more kind of smooth and slightly sweet the further you go into the aftertaste. I think the vanilla in this one, it did say there was vanilla added to it, and I think that's very subtle. So the further you go into the aftertaste, you get a few more of the kind of oaky and vanilla qualities coming out of this one as well. You do get a few more of those kind of infused flavours coming out of it later. But yeah, 80 IBUs I think, malt base, really roasty and toasty underneath, a bit smoother on top of that, and then you do get a little touch of sweetness from it, so a lot of things going on in the malt base, which is what you expect from an Imperial Stout, and with the fruitiness, quite sharp when you take it in, but then it really juices up a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. It's quite it's got just a little touch of sharpness to it as well, so it could be a little touch of oxidation when you consider the age of the beer, but I think this one has turned out to be very nice actually. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. This does make me very curious about some of the other beers from Sakiškės. How do we pronounce that again? Sakiškės Alus. I knew I was going to pronounce that wrong at some point in the video, but yeah, this makes me very curious about some of the other beers that they've done. So maybe an IPA or a lager or something like that from these guys could be a very interesting next review. I do hope I can review more Lithuanian beers for you sometime soon, but this one is a bit of a monster, and I think this was a very, very cool one to review for you. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. A really interesting beer in my opinion. So yeah, this one was the Imperial Stout, 9.2%, most definitely a very roasty, toasty and quite dry Russian Imperial Stout. Bit lighter in the mouthfeel compared to some of the other examples of the style that you're going to come across, but a very, very interesting one to try nonetheless. So yeah, this one was the Imperial Stout, 9.2% ABV from Sakiškių Alus in Sakiškės, just to the north of Vilnius in the southeast of Lithuania. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Awesome beer, and I do recommend you try out this one. Hopefully I can do more Lithuanian reviews for you sometime soon. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Sakiškės Alus as well, and hopefully we can return to these guys at some point in the near future. And I would love to review more Lithuanian beers for you on the channel as well. So if you are watching from Lithuania and you would be willing to sort me out a beer box and I can send you some money for the beers and to post it and stuff like that, do please comment in the section below or message me on Instagram or email me or something like this. I would love to review some more Lithuanian beers for you, so do get in touch with me if you would be interested in sorting out some more, helping me sort out some more Lithuanian beer reviews. But yeah, this one, the Imperial Stout from Sakiškės Alus in the southeast of the country. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Sláinte, skål, I svetkata.